Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Around the Realm. I am here with my good friend Miellyn, who is playing Sid in this season of Realms and Roleplay. So, you're going to be returning from season one, having previously played Matey Bullhorn, aka the Last Human. So, just for in case we have any new viewers that haven't seen season one, if you wouldn't mind just giving a little intro about yourself.
I'm Miellyn Barrows. I'm a professional writer and used to work in games a lot. That's kind of how this brought me that brought me here. And I just really love to play games and I love to do role play and you know be ridiculous. If you watch the show, you'll know this about me.
so, just for a little bit of context, how did you meet Carmen and get involved back on season two?
So that's a great question. I met Carmen at PAX 2020, PAX East, which was like 3 weeks before the whole world shut down.
I was just thinking about
Um,
that.
Yeah, yeah, we were in Boston at the end of February in 2020 and managed to not get COVID, which I still cannot believe.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and I met him through Sissy. Sissy Jones is a good friend of mine, and she and I have worked together on a lot of things. I used to run a panel called Foreplay Romance and Games, and Sissy was on that panel, and that's how we got to know each other. And because I used to work in romance games and write about romance games, and of course, Sissy was like, "You got to meet Carmen. He loves romance and games too," and so we totally bonded. And then our characters wound up romancing each other at different points, which is always hilarious and fun. He in season one, my character basically grabs onto an NPC and drags him through the entire series. And poor Carmen had to play that character the whole time.
It's okay because it created an iconic ship, Meef, and I think Carmen
If
just really loved. He loved playing Keith, like having him on the last Around the Realm. He was just like, I really love playing Keith, even though he tried to off him multiple times. Like he really loved playing Keith, and that's
I
a
kept like
whole.
I know that is a whole other thing that we're not here to talk about. But I was like, how would I feel if you killed him off? Well, maybe there were some other possibilities. My character was really into Fatima. I was like, she could go that direction
It could go that
if need
direction,
be.
yeah,
But
but me fan game. There's no way. I mean, the whole other. Okay, I'm gonna shut up about season one after this. But the whole other group just like literally fought to keep Keith. Like everybody banded together to keep Keith.
yes.
so, now that I'll shut up about season one, season two. So, how did you come up with Sid? Like, what was your process making her? And do you kind of see yourself in Sid?
Well, Sid is interesting. So Sid is the net runner, and I am that kind of player where I'm like, oh, something seems really interesting, and I'll grab onto it. So net running seemed really interesting to me. In season one, Carmen said there are no humans, and I said, great, I want to be the last human. Um, that I'm always interested in finding things that kind of have a story a little bit in there too. Um, Sid is actually, here's a bit of trivia that not a lot of people know. Sid is actually named after one of the characters from a movie that I love, Hackers,
Oh.
Acid Burn. But then I changed it so that it wouldn't just be that because, we couldn't just take the name, but that's a nod to that. And so, and yeah, Sid is very forgetful. I am also very forgetful, probably because I'm always thinking about like 17 things at once. And I gave her that memory issue because I thought it would be really interesting to explore that in this season. And also, we have so many NPCs. Then if I forgot one, I'd be like, fine. I could just be like, well, she's got a thing in her head. And it
That's
would be
brilliant.
totally fine.
That is brilliant. Gonna keep that in mind for if I ever do tabletop. I love that.
So yeah,
so
if I'm being honest, that was part of it. But I did think it would be really interesting because it would give her this like her mind is very important. That had and in this world, the world of cyberpunk, like, you know, there are all these things that are kind of working against you. And what do you have that is most important? What do you have that are your assets, and your brain is a big asset. And so if that's compromised, that can make you really vulnerable. And I thought that would be really interesting. I didn't know that I didn't have to make myself vulnerable. I should have known because Carmen always plays where he's trying to murder all of his characters. So I should have known I didn't actually have to make myself vulnerable at all. I would still have a target on my back. But there we were.
Yeah, that's true. Carmen is an evil DM, but we love you, Carmen. So if you're listening, we love
Oh, the most fun.
you. So, what advice would you give somebody wanting to make a tabletop character?
Um, you know, there are two ways that you can go about it. You can go for what you never get to be, or you can go for an augmented version of yourself. I typically play warrior characters because I really like big, strong characters who can hit things with a hammer. That is not me, unfortunately. Um, but this, of course, this time I thought it'd be really interesting to find a different kind of character like that. So I think that you like look through and see what really, if something sparks for you, something appeals to you, something that feels like it has more of a story to it, like being a net runner. There's so much there already. I think that this particular system is really interesting because of that, because it doesn't have as many options for characters as like D&D. Of course, it hasn't been, it's not as quite as vast, which is, I think, in some ways an advantage because it's easier to get your hands around it. And it gives you a lot more parameters that are kind of baked in. We were using the Jumpstart kit too. So we had that
Yeah.
kind of, some of it was figured out for us, which was good because I don't think that any of us had played that particular system before.
Oh,
So yeah, look for things that spark for you, and then see if something indicates a story, because that's going to give both you and your game master something to work with.
yeah. I'm sensing a theme here because Karma was saying that was his first time DMing us with Cyberpunk. So, yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if any of the other cast members have played Cyberpunk before. Do you find it? Do you find that it's like easier or harder than D&D?
Um, well, I mean, we're so steeped in D&D. Like, even if you haven't played D&D, if you play video games, I mean, it's funny. I have an 8-year-old, and I talked to him about how everything goes back to D&D. Like, he's playing all sorts of video games right now. He's very into Pokemon,
Ooh.
Scarlet and Violet, back and forth, back and forth. And there are a lot of those things. It's like this, they build on this D&D system. So we have an understanding and a literacy there, I think, that people don't have as much with Cyberpunk. I mean, Cyberpunk is great because it's also very popular and interesting, but it's not as pervasive. It's a little more contained.
Hmm.
So I think D&D is a little easier just because it's just like a little more second nature. And Cyberpunk is really interesting.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I was wondering. I mean, I have not played D&D in forever, and I was just thinking about. I haven't really thought about other tabletop until I got onboarded with Temporary Legend. I was like, wait a minute, there's more. And just seeing like
So
Vampire
much
the
more.
Masquerade and all these other things, I'm like, wow, it seems like
Oh,
so overwhelming, but kind of intrigued at the
it
same time.
well, if you have a great GM, it doesn't have to be. I mean, the first time I ever played Vampire the Masquerade was at PAX.
Oh,
They ran one of the game companies ran a special game for us, and we had to do it. And my character got into a lot of trouble. But I'd never played before, and it was good. Like, it was good trouble. I did the thing that eventually everyone does in this particular story that this game master, Ian, does. And anyway, let's just say I ate a heart. It was bad. It was
oh,
a thing that I had to do. I didn't have a choice. But like I said, I think if you have a great leader, and you're just open and you walk into it open, that you can get up to speed on systems.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what's worse: eating the heart, crushing the heart. Season 1 reference, people.
I know, I know. Isn't that funny? He was like, "Don't worry. Um, eventually, someone always eats the heart." So I was like, "Okay,
That was you.
yeah." But the crushing the heart. I mean, listen. We have some crushed hearts in this season too. Maybe allegedly coming up in a
Yeah.
maybe metaphorical sense. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe metaphorical, maybe literal. I don't know. Maybe Arya's just gonna swoop in and crush your heart, make a little cameo. You never know.
Oh my God.
But
That darling,
um,
darling bird.
I know, darling, darling Arya. Speaking of Sovereign of Death, like what is it? How is it like stepping into like kind of like a whole different genre? Because you know, like we went from especially like a different feel in terms of our group because Sovereign of Death, everybody was all buddy buddy and in this like more mythical fantasy world, and in this world, I mean, Sid's got a good relationship with Gizmo, but other than that, it's just like everybody, I feel like it starts off like separate from each other, and then I feel like they're gonna kind of grow together as the series
Yeah.
goes, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, that was super interesting. So the funniest thing about all that for me anyway was that so I'm close friends with Erin. We played season one. I introduced her to Carmen. And I'm also close with Larissa, who plays Ruby. Erin plays Zigzag. And so Erin's character and my character didn't know each other at all in this season, which I think is so funny. I'm like, we're gonna finally have to play where we like are friends. And Larissa's character and mine may know each other in a very hidden way. But Ryan and I had never met before. And our
Really?
yeah, never had anything to do with Ryan until the first time we all met for this season.
That's so
And
funny.
I know. And then we like have this ridiculous like partnership, which really grows out of the choices for our characters. I
Yeah.
love to partner with people when I play. That's another thing. It's like I really, really enjoy having somebody who's like my buddy, whether it's a real person or an NPC. And we were all buddies in season one, like you said. But with this one, our characters fit together so well, so it made sense. We thought it'd be really interesting if, like, my character gets jobs and brings him on these jobs because he's the fix it guy. And so and we just like gelled really well and like both were very obsessed with the food in the game. We had this idea that there's like not a lot of good food, so like anytime we found any good food at all, particularly shrimp, I'd stick some in my pocket for Gizmo, and that became a thing. Pocket shrimp was like
Oh my god. You know what? That's
it's
so
still a
funny.
thing.
I was just thinking about that because I, in 2020, during the lockdown, I made a bunch of skits as Azula, and she would pocket shrimp as she, like, make these
Are
wedding
you
toast.
serious?
Yeah, she would, like, make a wedding toast, and she'd be like, Teddy, let's take the shrimp and go. And she'd, like, put them in her pocket and, like, leave with the shrimp. And I'm like, oh my god, was that around the same time? I find that hilarious.
I think it is. And I love that you're on the same. I mean, it's too funny. It's the gross. It's so gross.
It's gross,
It's
yeah.
so gross, which is funny. And then shrimp is also just funny.
Yeah.
And also if you think about like in the world of cyberpunk, like fresh seafood is
Yeah.
gotta be hard to get. Like any
Yeah.
kind of like good food that's not, I think I can't remember what the food that like the normal food that everybody eats, the pellets. I can't remember the name of it.
I
But
don't know.
we've wound up in some buffet situations.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially with the Benito family, like you know, they got money, they got great
So
shrimp,
much
so
money.
so much
Yeah.
money, so much shrimp.
Yes. So I love that we're twins on the pocket shrimp.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, it's gross. It's not like breadsticks. I mean, you know, like shoving breadsticks in your purse. No, we're going hardcore. We're
Yeah,
doing the shrimp.
that's right.
So before we delve into our episode recap, what's something without spoilers that you most look forward to the audience seeing?
I love how everything kind of devolves. Well, both. Let's be real. I don't
Yeah.
think that's a spoiler saying things devolve.
No.
If you know anything about this platform or any of us, you know it's
Mhm.
going to devolve. Um, I it's such a joy to see everyone play their characters, particularly Ruby. Larissa as Ruby is such it just is such a trip. And the thing you need to know, and part of why she's such a trip, other than the fact that she's this wonderful performance, is that Larissa is literally the nicest person ever.
Mhm.
She is so sweet and so like lovely and so mean in this show, and I love it so much.
She mentioned something about Carmen was saying like that he could only ever see her playing good guys, and she was like, "All right, I'm gonna take that as a challenge." And I met Ruby first before like meeting Larissa, and when I met her, I'm like, "Oh my god, she's like the nicest person." I mean, I know you're an actress, but like, wow, okay.
She's gonna stab me. She's gonna stab me. She's definitely gonna stab me. Yeah, no, she's the nicest. You're totally right. But yeah, it's a great performance. But everybody on the cast is great in it, and so it's fun to see kind of how it all comes together. It's also I really did enjoy all the food. We got really ridiculous with food on the show, and
Yeah, you guys really
I
did.
thought I had fun with it.
I love the buffet. Like there's just so many buffet scenes that like are just happening in serious moments that are hilarious. Like something's going down and then you and Gizmo are just like, "Did you try this? Did you try that?"
We're eating, yeah.
I mean, when
Well,
have you
too,
had it
we're
before?
the hired, yeah, and we're the hired guns, and I think that there's um that was a big part of the strategy for that, was that we're paid to be there, kind of, or we're that's maybe not specifically. I mean, I don't want to get too far into what's behind everything, but even still, those are our functions in society, is very
Yeah.
much like we do jobs for money. That the rest of it, the emotional part of it, all of that stuff, is like not stuff that we engage with.
Mm-hmm.
So the food becomes the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I mean, I know, I believe it was this episode where they asked, where they kind of like made a deal with Ruby. Should have asked for a personal chef, but it's okay.
Oh, wow. If I
Lifetime of
had a
shrimp,
time machine.
personal chef.
If I had a I feel like I don't remember if there is a shrimp fountain that comes later, or if that was just a joke that we had outside of the
I can't
game.
remember, but I hope there's a shrimp fountain. And if not, I'm
I
just going
hope
to write
so
it in.
too.
I'm going to write
Yeah.
it in. So, we last left off with the gang making themselves at home in Ruby's apartment, which I loved. Everybody just kind of like kicked back. Sid was just like really rubbing it in, what Larissa said,
I know,
gassing it
she
out
got so
on my
mad at
couch.
me.
Oh, it was too fun. I mean, everybody's just like making themselves at home, and Ruby has cameras and speakers in her home, which is like, okay, that's a smart home to a new level, but okay. But we left off also with Calypso collapsing. They came into Ruby's room and collapsed. They're really badly hurt. Ruby tries to keep it a secret and is like looking for a kit, but isn't doing all that well because Gizmo follows follows Ruby as she's like frantically doing her thing. And Calypso's looking pretty bad. Zigzag helps patch him up, and Juno is Ruby's assistant, and they are going to go to Thrice Town Triple Duke, who has a secret medical facility. Gizmo, and Sid pretty much become glorified babysitters watching Zigzag. So,
Yeah.
but it pays good. Gizmo doesn't have a good feeling about Ruby, but Sid's just pretty much saying that, like, Ruby, she's all right, but she's trustworthy. She's not going to screw us over. And and Zigzag tries on all of her clothes and just marches around with the accent. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Ruby needs a break.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Ruby needs a break. um, we start to
Ruby
see
made her
also.
bed. I need to say Ruby made her bed.
That's true. That's very true. She does need a break, but it's kind of self-inflicted at the same time. Um, we also get to see how bad Sid's head kind of is because she reminisces about her times in Omnitech, but Ruby's like, that was a horrible time. And it kind of gives the audience a little bit like, okay, what happened? What went on? Foreshadowing. Like, that was actually awful. I
Yeah.
don't know what you're talking about. Raven was so funny in this episode. Raven was just playing video games, and when she was like, hey guys, watch this, and then it hit a gutter. I also love, I mean, there's not much of a positive relationship, but I love the relationship between Raven and Sid going on because Sid is just not having it. I think it was this episode. Gizmo said something about like, you know what, you're crazy, but I like you. And you're just like, I don't. I was like, oh, poor Raven. Raven's just trying, but
See, that's the thing. What is Raven trying to do? When you say Raven is trying, because here Raven is such a wonderfully chaotic character,
I
and
love Raven.
yes, and Sid can't, like, Sid needs safety, dependability.
Mm-hmm.
You see the opposite ends with Raven and Gizmo, and how Gizmo is like, you can set your watch by him. Like he is just as consistent and dependable as possible. And then you have Raven, who you literally never know what's going to happen next. And so I think Sid is like, I don't have capacity to like do that. No capacity for chaos is Sid.
No, and I mean Raven really is chaos. And I feel like giving mixed signals because Raven's not really telling the whole truth about her backstory and everything. She just like does this really dramatic monologue. You know, it all started in grade school, and then like Raven's just not giving complete honesty, which I feel like is really pissing Sid off at the same time. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Raven comes, you know, she comes around. She does her own thing because they all went to when they went to Afterlife, they got caught with the Novas, and they were kind of cornered. And Raven used to be with the Novas, for context for our viewers, but she got kicked out and was looking for a new crime family. So once they're shoved into Afterlife, they meet Bit, and I love Bit's design. How he like has like these emotes on his
Oh,
like
Bit.
visor.
Of course you loved it. Bit is 100% the kind of character you're going to fall madly in love with and get very attached to.
Yeah, poor Bit though.
I'm not finishing that sentence. I'm just not even, I can't talk more about Bit.
No, I guess you guys will have to keep watching because poor Bit. I mean, Raven attacks Bit with her cyber arm. That is how we end this episode. Raven's just like, yeah, sorry, and then she's like, boom. We end with a sucker punch for poor Bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's cliffhanger, so I don't know. Is what's gonna happen? I mean, they're kind of our gang is kind of screwed here because they're in like the clutches of the Novas, and Raven just punched Bit.
It's amazing. By the way, did you just hear that in the
What?
background? Oh, never mind. I have a new Ring doorbell, and it just announced that someone was on my front door, and I feel like Ruby. Like my Ring doorbell has completely elevated me to Ruby status. Maybe I'm just gonna start like running around and being nasty to people and wearing pink wigs. You never know.
You never know. Well, thank
But
you
I
so
just wondered if you
much.
heard it.
No, I didn't. Do you have cameras? Do you have speakers in your house that you can just like call to people?
Yes. Yes, I
Yes,
do.
sir.
I have video cameras. If anybody comes in and puts on all my clothes,
Does
I
a
know
horrible
about it.
impression. Yep, you're gonna know about it. You're gonna be right there to stop it. Well, thank you so much, Miellyn, for being on this episode of Around the Realm. Thank you so much for talking about Sid, giving us a little bit of behind the scenes.
Thank you. And thank you for all the great work you've been doing on the show. I really love what you're doing, and I
Well,
love getting to talk to you with this.
thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next time on Around the Realm.